are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. It is Wild Card Week, and for Wild Card Week, we welcome on a very wild man. We had him on in week one, and to quote one of the great American authors of our time, I am not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. And since the Bengals had a good regular season, we brought him back for the postseason. Fox 19's Jeremy Rauch. Jeremy, what is up?
You are quoting Michael Scott, who CJ Uzomah just quoted about a week or so ago with us on a Zoom call, which is fantastic. One of the greatest characters in sitcom history, Michael Scott. Love him. Happy to be back, Matt. It's awesome to join you again. I was trying to remember this past week or so about some of my hot or freezing cold takes. And I believe I said, and you have the tape, and it's still out there on the internet somewhere, I believe I said the Bengals would win 9 games. I swear I said that everywhere. I hope I said that on your podcast so it stays congruent. So I wasn't terribly far off. Like, it wasn't the worst guess in the world. And now here they are going to the playoffs at 10-7.
I had them going 9-8 also. I will go back and listen. I don't remember that. 2 predictions you did make. You picked CJ Uzomah to be the breakout player, which I really think was pretty accurate. And the bad one you had was the team you picked to win the division.
Oh, gosh. Ravens?
No.
Browns?
Yes.
Oh.
Now, that said, if you look, the Browns did beat the division winner twice, A. And B, they played a quarterback who I don't think is great to begin with. But when you have like a cocky Andy Dalton who's banged up, it's hard to win football games, especially when you decide, hey, you know what? Let's have beat up cocky Andy Dalton throw the ball 30 times a game while Nick Chubb sits over here and blocks rushers.
There needs to be a T-shirt of Baker Mayfield's head, and it says, "I'm a cocky Andy Dalton who's beat up."
That's I'm sure there's a T-shirt company. Every thing that barely registers on the radar, either Cleveland or Cincinnati makes a T-shirt out of it.
One of my other picks, I do recall this. I said the Cowboys were going to win the Super Bowl.
You did say that. That's still in play.
That's not out of play. I'll put it that way. That's not out of play. I don't feel good about it, but it was kind of off the beaten path. So we'll see.
Okay. We'll get into that in the rapid fire segment, a little foreshadowing for the folks out there. Tell me this, man. I've heard you just talking about Uzomah. I've heard you on some of the press conferences asking just wonderful questions, being the excellent journalist you are. This is kind of like a corny question, but what's the vibe right now between practice and press conferences? Does the team feel any different than they have the past month or so?
Yeah, this team has reached, Matt, an all-time confidence level high. It is noticeable, even though we've transitioned back to Zoom calls on the midweek pressers now for at least 2 to 3 weeks, I believe. Being at practice, being around this team, there is a noticeable vibe because that comes through in interviews that we do with players and with coaches. And the mindset is simply this. We don't give a bleep about the past. That's how I would put their mindset right now, how they feel about what they're doing and what they're going to do. It's they believe, and they have spoken it into existence all season long. It's happened. We've seen it. We've watched it. They believe that they are a better team than the team they are going to face. And how many times have we talked to this team, to the Bengals, even in the years when they did make the playoffs 5 years in a row with AJ Green and Andy Dalton? In some of those years and some of those vibes was always, you could hear them saying what they felt about themselves, what they were going to do. You knew they had talent. You knew they were confident, but you didn't really believe that they believed always they were the better team. And whether or not that's actually true inside the locker room is a different thing. But from the fan base, from the media, from our perspective, we didn't always believe it. I've been here now for a little more than 8 years. I came in 2013. So I saw 3 of the 5 playoff runs they had with Andy Dalton and AJ Green. None of those last 3 runs felt like this season right now, where this team is right now, where honestly, when we talk to Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon and CJ Uzomah and on down the line with all the guys, and even Zach Taylor and the assistants, when they tell us they believe that they are better than the other team, and they may not say that explicitly, but when they say things like that, we believe it. The fans believe it. The media believes it. And they've given us reason to believe it, Matt, with wins like they had over the Chiefs to win the AFC North. So that's where we are, man. It's an all-time high in belief. And I think that's why a lot of people actually believe, instead of feeling like, Lucy's going to pull the football on Saturday, people believe that this team is going to win their first playoff game in 31 years.
Yeah, and that's certainly how I feel. I have not felt – there were some games with the Andy Dalton teams where I felt pretty confident, but I haven't felt this confident since the 05 team, which, of course, we're going way back then. And, even with that team, I was 16 years old, so I didn't know any better. But this is the one where I feel like no matter how the game goes down, if the Bengals were to lose, this would be like a top 3 Bengals loss in my lifetime, just based solely on the fact that I've never felt so confident, especially since I've kind of been a quote unquote adult.
Yes, the confidence should be there. I mean, Matt, like it feels like for all of the bad breaks the Bengals have had, and you already mentioned 05. I'm not going to get into that. Bengals fans know. You think about 2013 against the Chargers, right? And the turnovers that the Bengals had in that game, and a game that they should have won, you would think, going into it. You think about 2014 with the injuries. I mean, we can check the box score. I'm pretty sure Rex Burkhead was the leading receiver in that game against the Colts. And then the Steelers in 2015, we all know how that played out. We know that Andy Dalton couldn't play in that game, but obviously there are things to be talked about, or maybe you could say be buried and never talked about again from that game. All of those bad breaks, all the bad luck, and it reverses, Matt, which is incredible. The end of that Chiefs game, and the amount of things that happened for the Bengals to be able to perfectly run out the clock and win that game the way they did. And then on top of that, the end of the Raiders-Chargers game, where it feels like the Raiders were going to run the clock out, right? Going to run the clock out, play for a tie. The Chargers call a timeout. And in the end, the Raiders kick the game-winning field goal. And here we are with the Bengals getting to face the Raiders. I mean, the things that played out, it feels like the world has finally said, all right, Cincinnati, you've had enough. We're going to let a couple of things slip in your favor. And now they get the matchup, which is the dream matchup. If you looked at every team they could have faced, this is the dream matchup. This Bengals defense is not top of the league. They're middle of the pack, but they are really, really good at creating turnovers. The Raiders are extremely turnover prone. You like Joe Burrow and the run game and whatever they can do against this team in the attack and the way they approach this game. They already beat them by double digits not too long ago. So everything about this game, Matt, should make you feel really confident as a Bengals fan.
Yeah, 32-13 the last time they played them. Second half really put the dogs on them out in Vegas. I will say, you mentioned everything breaking the Bengals' way. It feels poetic in a way. You and I are talking on Thursday morning, January 13th, 2022. 31 years ago today, the Cincinnati Bengals lost in the playoffs to the then Los Angeles Raiders. Bo Jackson went down with a hip injury, was never the same. Some people say that the Bengals have been cursed since then. I said this week, look, John Madden got to football heaven a couple weeks ago, and the football gods said, look, man, what do you want to do about this franchise that ruined maybe the greatest star in Raiders history? And he said, I'm not going to do the impression. I'm bad at impressions. But he probably said, let him go. Let him go. Let him have it. They've suffered enough. Isn't it poetic when you look at all the breaks the Bengals have got, that they're playing the team that was the team that started this losing streak they're on in the playoffs now?
There is something unique about it, Matt. I mean, I've had fans come at me on Twitter about using the word curse, and I've gotten to the point where I've said, you can call it whatever you want. I didn't believe in a Cincinnati curse as far as sports goes in general until I watched in person. Xavier loses a 1 seed and UC loses a 2 seed in Nashville in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. When I saw that happen back to back, the way it happened, I remember I went out to do live TV in the 11 o'clock news, and Tricia said, what just happened? And I said, Cincinnati's cursed. And this is the first time I actually kind of believed that for real. And that's speaking as someone who saw the 2015 game in person. And certainly I know about the 2005 game as well, even though I didn't cover it between the Bengals and Steelers. But it does feel like this is so full circle, Matt, like to see the timeline of everything for it to be the Raiders. And again, to go back to what it took just for the Bengals to face the Raiders instead of the Patriots. Instead of facing Bill Belichick, you get Derek Carr, who I think is one of the most mediocre quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he's extremely turnover prone, as I already said. He doesn't make great decisions. I understand he's a nice human. I understand he's a decent quarterback. But there's so many ways that this Bengals team can beat
what
this
you're saying
Raiders
is he's
team.
Andy Dalton wearing a Raiders uniform.
But I mean, like that, and to your point, Matt, like there's so many times that Bengals fans went into a game like this feeling like we have a mediocre quarterback. And is that good enough? You don't have that anymore. You have a guy named Joe Burrow running the show who, as some have said this week, a guy like that wants to take your soul on the football field. Okay. And he has the talent to do so. His pocket awareness is incredible. He's been sacked more than anyone else in the league. And yet he is able to get this team to where they are right now. But the full circle aspect of this game, Matt, is so special. It's so unique. It's so Cincinnati because only Bengals fans really, really know how much this would mean because it is the Raiders, because of the Bo Jackson curse, because of all of that. I think it's going to make for an incredible night of celebration on Saturday night when they finally get to put this curse to bed.
I'll ask you this. When you say it like it's a sure thing, I've kind of felt this week, we've seen crazier things happen, right? Than if the Bengals were to lose on Sunday. And not to get negative, but do you feel like the fan base, which I know has no impact on the outcome of the game, I felt like my Bengals friends I know and the ones I follow on Twitter, I love the enthusiasm, and it's fine. That's what fans should do. But is the fan base a little too confident? I feel that way. Like the way we're talking right now, it's like, yeah, it's just a protocol. Who are the Bengals going to play in the divisional round?
Yeah, yes, the confidence is very high. I will say that even the news coverage in Cincinnati has been very much of a celebratory. It's time to, end the drought. It's time to win. It's going to happen. And everyone you talk to is saying that it's going to happen. You're even talking to me, who's basically saying, I think that this is absolutely a game they should win. I think it's going to happen. However, the Raiders do have a very good pass rush. Now, the thing about the Raiders is they are not a blitz heavy team. If you want to get into all the numbers and look at percentages and all that, they don't blitz very often. They're, as far as the league goes, they're bottom of the league. They just have some bad dudes on the edge. And as Joe Mixon called him, Mad Max. And they can wreck a game. They can affect the game. They can get to Joe Burrow. Even though Joe Burrow is really good at eluding sacks, when the pressure gets there, it could break up the game plan a little bit. The run game may not go as well as it did last time against the Raiders, where they can break the dam. They're going to have to scheme around that. They're going to have to make sure they don't turn it over. And yes, Matt, the Raiders are good enough to find a way to somehow score in the Bengals pass defense, who is not fantastic, and possibly make this a game where they somehow, some way find a way to win. The confidence is less cautious than I thought it would be, because we know the history with this team. We know that, the other shoe is going to drop at some point. But again, to go back to what I started with, this city, and even, the media coverage and everything, this city is feeding so much off of what they've seen this team do all season. The trends they've already broken, whether it be the Steelers, the Ravens, the primetime thing, the road wins, whatever. And all of that has now kind of bottlenecked into this over-the-top level of confidence, even though they're kind of allowing themselves to forget the fan base, the team, the media, whatever, the history of this team, because I think that they just believe so much that it's going to happen.
And I think that comes from number 9. I mean, like you said, we don't give a bleep about the past has kind of been the sentiment from Joe Burrow and company this week. So, and that's the reason I'm there too. I mean, Joe Burrow, and I think we all know people like that in life who are just like, we either played sports with them in high school, or now that we're adults, they in their career are just like, whatever it is, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And I feel like Joe Burrow is one of those guys. And that's why I'm as confident. In the past, I would go in, to quote Michael Scott again, saying, I'm ready to be hurt again. But this time around, it would be, and that's why I said at the top of the show, if they were to not win, which is not something I believe will happen, but if they were to lose, this would be up there with those, that 05 game, that 2015 game, is the biggest heartbreaker for me. Two things I'll say going back to week 18. One, something else that works in the Bengals' favor, they've got to be stinking exhausted after playing a Sunday night game. I think we've talked about that. But one thing I kind of took some heat for on old twitter.com that I didn't really give an opinion about, but just pointed out, Zach Taylor did something pretty smart and essentially saying, I'm not going to play in the middle here where I might get a higher seed or I might not. He said, I'm giving my team a bye week right now. I mean, I don't know that I can ever remember a team doing that where they say, hey, I'm going to get a first round bye, whether or not the chips fall that way or not. And now you've got Logan Wilson saying he's 100%. Joe Burrow could obviously, he talked about the mental rest. I just think for all the flack Zach Taylor has taken, that's a pretty darn stinking smart move.
Yeah, I had a thought on it that I waited to send. So like Twitter is timing, Matt, as you know.
Yes. Got to feel the temperature, read the room.
You got to read the room. And it depends on what kind of role you're in as well. Like if I didn't work for a news station and wasn't in media, I would send more tweets. I would probably get roasted more often. I try to hold back as best I can. And so I waited until after the Raiders kicked the game-winning field goal late Sunday night and finally put out that I basically thought that Zach made the right call. Now, I thought that, and I may have said it in a couple of live shows we did in a roundabout way, but I thought Zach made the right call without a doubt midweek when he made it, when he told us, when Joe Burrow said, I'm not going to play, but I didn't actually post anything until, it all played out. And in the end, how did it play out? I mean, the Titans won. Better. Yeah, the Titans won. The Chiefs won. You weren't going to pass them up. And, the Bills get their spot and the Bengals get to host, as they were going to host already, they get to host the Raiders. And so you couldn't have drawn it up any better. And what would you rather have? Would you rather have Joe Burrow play in that game and kind of be hobbling around a little bit in the playoff opener, have some of those things happen? Or would you rather have the best possible version of Joe Burrow? You would take that any day of the week. And by the way, Joe Burrow told us he was already watching film last week of potential playoff opponents before they even faced the Browns, teams like the Colts, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Patriots. So he was already getting into that. So there are just so many advantages. And Zach has always leaned on I guess he's a little, what's the word? I don't want to say millennial. He's a little ahead of the curve in some ways in his mindset on rest. Like we've seen him do it so many times where he does rest. He rests players more often on those veteran Wednesdays midweek. And so he does it again. It's not shocking that he chose to do it again here, but you couldn't have asked for a better scenario to be ready to face a team who, by the way, the Raiders this week, when they send out the injury report, Matt, they will make a note if a team does a walkthrough that they can't get a real feel on the injured players because it was a walkthrough. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the note on both days was there's not a true read on injured players for the Raiders because all they did was a walkthrough. So the Raiders, who played late Sunday night, won in overtime, did a walkthrough on Tuesday and on Wednesday. And Thursdays are typically just kind of a game walkthrough kind of day. So the Raiders are basically just doing a walkthrough practice all week before a playoff game because they were that banged up and needed that much rest coming off that game. So if that doesn't give you an idea of how much of an advantage the Bengals have, even more so off resting their players on that pseudo bye week. It really should, because it's a fantastic advantage for the Bengals in this game.
Yeah, and they lost, I can't remember the name, one of their defensive linemen tore his pec in that game, unfortunate. So that's another gap they're going to have to fill, which, again, you don't want to see anyone get injured, but the Bengals offensive line can use all the help that they can get. Last thing before we get into rapid fire, not that I love, and I've said this before, I love when, especially for this Joe Burrow squad, I don't want national praise on the Bengals. I want them to go into every game with a chip on their shoulder, saying how they're still the Bengals. They haven't done anything yet. I love that. I do find it interesting, for as hot as everyone was on the Bengals after that Chiefs win, they kind of just become an afterthought from the little bit of national coverage I've watched and listened to, which mostly is having NFL Network on when I'm at the gym and a few radio shows here and there. But everyone, the Titans get Derrick Henry back and they're the 1 seed. Wow, they got their best guy back. Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They're going to go in there. The Bills, the preseason favorite. Meanwhile, the team that had their back against the wall and won 3 in a row, including one against those Chiefs, not getting as much talk. Do I need to take my Bengals jersey off here? Am I looking through black and orange glasses? Or do you kind of get the same sense that for the most part, people seem to think, and I know people are high on the Bengals. I heard Maurice Jones-Drew yesterday say he thinks they'll make it to the Super Bowl. But for the most part, it seems like it's a 3-team race for most people. And again, I like that. I just kind of find it interesting given the Bengals resume the last month.
Yeah, I think when you get to the playoffs, the conversation turns to who people really believe are contenders. And you look at, years past and teams that have been there, teams that are there again, and you can go across the board. And obviously the Packers are going to get plenty of talk. The Bucs are going to get plenty of talk. And the Chiefs and the Titans and even the Bills and a lot of those things. And the Patriots, I haven't paid that close attention nationally, might even get more than the Bengals because they have Bill Belichick. There's a lot of reasons why the Bengals wouldn't get tons of love now that we're in the playoffs, because to me, it feels like, Matt, they have Joe Burrow. Yes, they had a nice season. Yes, they're ahead of schedule, however you want to frame it. But now we're in the playoffs. Now we're in the playoffs, and let's talk about the teams that we believe are the real contenders. I don't think a lot of people really believe the Bengals are real contenders. And so, just to start the playoffs, you don't have that conversation around them yet. Now, if they win a game on Saturday, they win it convincingly, however they win this game, and let's just say they go to play the Titans as the 1 seed, right? If the seeds play out right in Nashville next weekend, then it's really going to start to ramp up. But I've said this over and over again since they won the division title, Matt. You couldn't ask for a better year, in my opinion, in the AFC. It feels like it's very gettable. We know, because we've seen the film, that this Bengals team is good enough to win the AFC. They beat the Chiefs. I know the Titans are the 1 seed, but the Chiefs are the cream of the crop. They are the standard, back-to-back Super Bowl runs. They won a title 2 years ago. They are the standard to win the AFC. That's the team you're gunning for. It might go through the Titans, but that's the team you're gunning for. And the Titans, even with Derrick Henry, in my opinion, are still beatable. We know this Bengals team can win games like that. And so to me, the hard thing about this is people will say, well, this team is just starting. This team is just now beginning to rise. But you just never know. It doesn't mean that Joe Burrow is not going to win a lot of games and get him back to the playoffs, or possibly do multiple playoff runs and win a Super Bowl. But you don't know. The only thing we know right now is that this team has had a great season, and that this team has the talent right now to, in my opinion, win the AFC in a year where other teams are not in the conversation or aren't as good as they've been in years past. So I think, Matt, this is back to your point about being devastated over a Raiders loss when we didn't think this team would make the playoffs this year for the most part. That's why you would feel that way, because just from watching games, from watching them beat the Chiefs, and fans know that this team has a chance to do something special.
Yeah, and again, not to harp on the past. I don't give a bleep about the past, Jeremy, but after that 2005 game, you thought, all right, well, that sucked, but Carson's going to get healthy again. This team, they're loaded. Who was it? Torrey James led the league in interceptions, picked off Brett Favre like 7 times in one game. Deltha O'Neal, you had all that talent. Ocho, TJ, Chris Henry. You thought, oh, this team's going to be back very soon. They're going to be in great shape. They didn't make the playoffs again for 4 years. They never won a playoff game. So again, I know it's a different team, but I kind of have that trauma from the past that, again, Joe Burrow, I've got all the confidence in the world in. I'll say that. We'll be optimistic moving forward. But just to your point, you never know how long that window is going to stay open. So it's important right now to get at a minimum a win just to break the curse. And then what happens from there could be a lot of fun. And we'll hopefully get into that next week. By the way, going back to that Chargers game, Rex Burkhead was the 3rd leading receiver. Leading them in receiving that day was another running back, Giovanni Bernard, 8 catches for 46 yards. Now, I think you and I don't know, were we talking
against the Colts?
Oh, Colts. This is Chargers, I think. Oh, no, this is a Colts. This is a Colts.
Okay,
a 26-10 loss.
Rex Burkhead was top 3. Giovanni. Okay, if I remember right, there was a play in that game where Giovanni Bernard got laid out on a screen pass. I felt so bad for him. But I am surprised. I thought it was Rexy Plexy. Sexy Rexy.
Now it looks like Sexy Rexy did lead them in total yards.
Oh, okay. There we go. There it is.
So combined, he had 59 yards and was their leader.
I wasn't terribly far off.
No, you were not. And this might be, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast or before when we were chit-chatting. This might be the random receiver who led them in receiving yards in a playoff game. Now, the receiver who led them in receiving yards that day, I do know who he is. Do you know who it is off the top of your head? I wouldn't have got it, by the way.
Okay, hold on. This is totally out of like the blue. Is this
so for people? Hold on. For people who want to play, and I'll let you think. For people who want to play along at home, we're talking about the Bengals' loss to the Colts in the wild card game that would have been the 2014 season. They lost to Andrew Luck and company. I believe this was the Deflategate year at the end of everything. Maybe not. I don't know. But anyways, we're talking about who was the Bengals' leading receiver, who was also a wide receiver. Who led them in receiving yards that day was Giovanni Bernard, but the receiver who had the most yardage that day, remember, AJ Green was out that day.
Okay, I've got a name in my head. This is probably so far gone, so wrong. Is his first name James?
It is not.
Oh, not the guy I was thinking of. Okay, who is it?
Ryan Hewitt.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Ryan Hewitt was a tight end, wasn't he?
Actually, according to Pro Football Focus, he was a fullback.
That's right. He was a fullback. That's right. Good Lord, Ryan.
But he only had one career rush for the Bengals as to where he had 9 career catches.
He had long blonde hair.
Yes.
Ryan Hewitt. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Yep. Those are your top 3 playmakers in that game. Gio, Ryan Hewitt, and Rex Burkhead.
Yes.
Oh my so that made my day. I cannot believe that. I need to do trivia with
that.
My
is
coworker.
A nice bit. That's like high level Bengals trivia right there, especially if you're going modern.
I need to ask Joe Daneman about that because we were both there covering it and see if he remembers that, my coworker, because that is fantastic. Wow. Okay. Very good.
There we go. All right. You ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do it, baby.
It can be as rapid as you do or don't want. All right. First question. The Bengals win Saturday if blank.
They win the turnover battle.
They win the turnover battle. I'll say if they protect Joe Burrow. I think both those things pretty obvious. But again, these games come down to kind of simplistic things a lot of the time. The Bengals lose Saturday if what?
Well, I don't want to go the opposite.
I mean, that would make sense.
That would make sense. I could go that. The Bengals lose Saturday if they don't have a good plan for Mad Max. Okay. You know, Joe Burrow gets, I don't even want to say it. If Joe Burrow gets not his ACL knee, but the knee that was banged up and the Chiefs win, if that gets uncomfortable for him by getting hit a few too many times.
That is probably a better answer than mine. Mine was if Derek Carr has an all-time game, which I don't think will happen again, or not again, but I'd like to point out Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic put out this stat earlier in the week. Derek Carr, when it's below 37 degrees, is 0-5, and his team has never scored more than 17 points in those games. So, you know, Texas guy, California guy, it will be 27 degrees on Saturday. What's the coldest game you've ever covered?
Coldest game I've ever covered. There was a game. I can't even recall which one. There was a game, not the games in Green Bay, not the games in Denver I've been to, or Cleveland in January. There was a game in Cincinnati years ago. It was like 9 degrees. I can't remember what year. It might have been 2016. We had a pregame show, and I remember we had 2 hours of live pregame because the game was on Fox, and I brought my mug of coffee, my travel mug, because I'm always drinking coffee. And my coworker doesn't drink coffee. So he goes, "Can you bring me just a travel mug of hot water?" He just sipped hot water the whole pregame show. We had on layers, but it was like 8 or 9 degrees, something like that. I'd have to go check. It was cold.
Yeah, those aren't fun. I've had 2 that come to mind, both high school games. When I was 19, Jed DeMusi and I covered the New Lexington Panthers in the state Final Four. And I think it was like 5 or 6 degrees in Canton that night. And then another one in Erie, Pennsylvania, which of course is brutally cold in the winter. It was one of those days where it was a big playoff game and we had the pregame. I did some live hits and it was like rainy and like 37, and it dropped into the teens and snowed. So I was kind of damp. And then I literally wrote things down that night, like into the teleprompter and stuff that I looked at the next day. Did not make sense. Probably dangerous. Okay.
By the way, Canton and Cleveland is a different kind of cold.
It really, that's the way Erie is. The air, it's not like it's just cold out. The air itself packs extra cold because of that moisture.
Yeah, I would take out because I was in Cleveland for the God love that game, the Bengals Browns game last weekend. It was, I think, 35, 36 degrees. It said it felt like 20. It felt like 10. It was terrible. I would take 10 degrees in Cincinnati over 10 degrees in Northern Ohio any day of the week.
It's absolutely a different kind of cold. Very relatable. Okay, next question. Who wins the Super Bowl? You sticking with the Cowboys here? Or are you going to go with the hometown team or somewhere else?
I don't like my Cowboys pick anymore. I do think that it wasn't a terrible pick.
No, not at all. I mean, especially the big thing they have against them right now is they're facing maybe the hottest team in the league in San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. I don't love it anymore. I was trying to zig. I think we are going to see finally Aaron Rodgers win another championship. I don't know when he's going to retire. I don't know if he's going to leave Green Bay. He doesn't know that. He's going to drag it out and do all this drama with us. But nonetheless, they have won games in an incredible fashion this year, which just tells me that destiny has played in their favor so many times. And they have arguably the greatest quarterback on planet Earth right next to Tom Brady. And I just think that Aaron Rodgers is going to get one more, right? I feel like he's going to get one more. And I feel like this team this year is really built, this Packers team, to win a championship. But again, as I said already, I wouldn't be shocked. This is crazy. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bengals are there. It just feels like I get this weird feeling, man, like something weird is going to happen. And it may not be the Bengals, but wouldn't that be fun to see the Bengals and Packers meet again after that epic game, that field goal battle?
Yeah,
where the wind was messing things up, again.
Right. And you mentioned the Bengals can play with anyone in the AFC. The Packers are probably the overwhelming favorite. I haven't looked at the Vegas odds, but they're probably the overwhelming favorite. That's back in October before the Bengals really got clicking. That, again, there are a couple missed field goals. It was a wacky game, but went to overtime with the team that's now the overwhelming favorite. Maybe not overwhelming, but certainly the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And I'm with you. And I talked about Maurice Jones-Drew earlier. He made a good point that it reminds him of the Chiefs team 2 or 3 years ago. I guess it'd be 3 years ago now that went to the Super Bowl and won it. They're just on the rise. They've got all the pieces there. They don't really even know how good they are yet, or you would kind of think. And that's a comparison he made. And it's a good comp. I picked the Rams as my preseason Super Bowl winner. I still don't hate that pick. So we'll see. They won 5 in a row before losing to the 49ers, who seemingly just have their number, one of those odd situations.
Yeah.
So let's go off football for a second. You can spend a weekend with any celebrity, Jeremy. Who are you picking?
Wow, a weekend with any celebrity.
And I'll say you can think about it. There's a lot of people I could go with here. I mean, there's people like, George Clooney would be cool. Any rock star really. Like if I'm going, like, how fun would a weekend with Post Malone seems like a really cool guy. Right now, I'd probably go with Jason Momoa. I'm sure a lot of people saw the news this morning. He and his wife are separating. And I think he's an incredible person. I like what he does for the planet. Aquaman's a fantastic movie. So I'd go with him just to console him, maybe knock a few back.
I have one, and it's a definite. I had to think about it for a second. I went through favorite actors all time for me, which is like the Tom Hanks, the Tom Cruise. But Tom Cruise, I feel like this conversation.
He's a weirdo.
Weird. Yeah, it would get really weird. Tom Hanks would be fascinating, but I not a whole weekend. So I'm going to go with Travis Barker. And if you don't know who Travis Barker is, he was the drummer for Blink-182 for a long time. He's done a ton of one-off projects.
He's a superstar now. Like,
he is a
engaged to a Kardashian.
Yeah, exactly. So if you know, you know. Travis Barker, I would love to and I would probably annoy him because I would want to have him do drum solos for me, like nonstop. Like, hey, you just play and I'll watch, man. Let's not make this weird. And I would want to just learn stuff from him. I want to ask him questions about, going on tour with Blink or whatever else. It'd be nonstop. I would probably annoy the heck out of him, but that would be unbelievably cool for me.
That would be a cool one. By the way, did you listen to the last Machine Gun Kelly album that he produced?
I heard one song on it. I'm trying to remember. So I'm always looking for Travis Barker when he does covers, right?
Yeah.
Like he'll play acoustic drums along to a song that, originally didn't have acoustic drums on it. But I can't think of a song off the top of my head.
Well, Forget Me Too was one of the singles. I don't know. I would just say I loved it. It was my favorite album of the year. It's essentially an old school Blink-182 album with Machine Gun Kelly singing. So I recommend checking that out. So yeah, Travis Barker's a cool dude. That's a good answer too. He doesn't fly anymore though.
What's the name? I'm so terrible with pop culture stuff. What's the name of the song Lil Nas is popular right now?
Lil Nas X? I don't know.
Dun, 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 dun,
I know the beat, but I don't. Dude, there's so many songs that I hear and I like, and I'm like, hey, I'm still young and cool, but I have no idea. It'll be like Lil Squeegee or something, and I'm like, I can't remember.
I can't think of the name of the song. Okay. Travis Barker laid down a remix with that he put out on his Instagram, and it is fantastic. If you know the song, a lot of high school marching bands right now, even college, are playing that because it's got a lot of horns in it, and it sounds really cool. But Travis did a remix to that on the gram, which is fantastic.
I'll check it out. I love a good horn section.
Yeah.
Moving on here, we could talk about that all day. On the occasion you have to watch a big sporting event, you're typically covering them. What is your go-to meal / snacking option?
Oh, forever and always, pizza. Okay. You got to have pizza. Got to have some brews. Got to have some Coca-Cola for the kids. My kids lose their minds. They don't get a lot of soda. So like if they get Coca-Cola at like we're watching like a big game for them or with them or whatever, it's always in the mix. As for the snack on the side, maybe I'm making too big of a spread here, man, but like I love the buffalo chicken dip. The spicy buffalo chicken dip.
That's the most Licking County answer ever. It's like, yeah, give me some cream cheese and hot sauce, baby.
Hey, dude, I am straight from Licking County, and there's no hiding it. Also, pigs in a blanket, which I know there are different names for them.
I had those at my wedding.
Yeah. Pigs in a blanket. So pizza, we've got a Papa John's right across the street. That's our go-to. Hashtag no promo. And also,
you ever get the Shaq-a-roni?
I have got the Shaq-a-roni, $12. Right.
That's a good deal
with the coupon. And then Jets Pizza, which is Detroit style if you haven't had it. Jets Pizza is to die for. I love
those crispy
pizza.
Edges, baby.
Oh, that turbo crust, man, all day long.
Turbo crust.
Yeah. So yeah, pizza, pigs in a blanket. You got the Buffy chicken dip, and then some brews and some Coca-Cola. That is And no, you don't need the veggies, man. Just leave them at home.
No, vegetables are for losers. Let's say you're at Bengals practice. Are you going to practice today?
I will not be there today because there's no filming allowed. So today is like let's see, it's Thursday. They're playing on Saturday. Today is like a normal Friday for them, where it is a much lighter kind of walkthrough, and we are not allowed to get video. So if I can't get video, for what I do in local news TV, I don't go.
Well, let's say you are at practice one day and Mike Tyson is there at Bengals practice. He comes up to you. He's like, oh, who's this pretty boy? And he wants to start a fight with you. Which Bengals player do you want to come defend you?
What's funny about like this answer? I'm kind of surprising myself with this answer, but I feel strongly about it in the same way. I would go with Trey Hendrickson.
He was on my short list.
Because Trey Hendrickson is a good Christian man. However, on the football field, he has a mean streak. He talks trash to anyone and everyone nonstop after the play, quarterbacks mostly when the play ends. He's relentless. And even though when you look at him, you don't think like that dude is in the weight room every single day. He's not like cut, ripped, but he's big. And he has got football guy, high motor. And he's the kind of guy that would just, I think, potentially overwhelm with his reach Mike Tyson, and would have a chance to bully him up a little bit. Yeah.
See, the guy, that's a great pick. He was on my list. The guy I went with was CJ Uzama, just because CJ's got those massive arms, so he could kind of hold you back. And he's also such a vocal guy that he would, calm Mike down, hopefully hold you back a little, because, you can throw them bows. So CJ Uzama, but yeah, either way would be a good pick. Up next, let's hope that never actually happens, by the way.
Dear God, please.
It'd be cool if Mike Tyson came to practice, just not if he wanted to fight you.
Yeah.
Up next, most important player the Bengals need to show up on Saturday, not named Joe Burrow.
I think the most important player that they need to show up on Saturday is, I really think they need to, man, this is not a hot take. I think it's a deep track. They need Jesse Bates to be at his best, because I do think there are going to be a couple of times where Derek Carr does have a chance to find a guy like a Darren Waller, right? A guy like that, where Jesse Bates is in a compromised spot where he remembers, because we talked to him this week, he remembers what happened in the first game. It's not like he got destroyed or anything, but Jesse Bates at times this year has struggled covering big guys down the field, whether it be a tight end or a wide receiver. He has had a hard time in those spots where he's put in that position. And not just that, I talked about creating turnovers. I think Jesse Bates is also due in that department to have one of those moments in a game like this. I mean, certainly you could go down the line. You could talk about, I would like a guy like Tyler Boyd to have a big game, because, he's potentially in a game where Joe Burrow has to get the ball out of his hands really quick, a guy they can go to a lot in this game over the middle. But I'm going to go with Jesse Bates, man. I'm going to kind of pick a deep track name here and think that he's going to have a couple of times where he's in a big spot and needs to play like the guy they thought they wanted him to be all season long, the guy they wanted to pay.
Yeah, there's going to be, no matter what, the Raiders are going to get some chunk plays, but Jesse Bates comes into play. You don't want those. Darren Waller is going to have maybe a time or two or three, a 20 or 30 yard catch. You just don't want that to turn into a 60-yard touchdown. The one I said, and kind of along the same lines here, was Logan Wilson, because he's in the middle there. He can help with Darren Waller, and at the same time, he can help with Josh Jacobson. And those are the two guys that, if you can contain them, if you tell me that both those guys will stay under 100 yards on Saturday, I'll feel pretty confident. But yeah, defense, don't give up the big plays. Let them nickel and dime you a little bit. That's going to happen. They've got one of the best tight ends in football and a pretty good running back whose name's cooled off, but he's still one of the guys. Two more, including your final score prediction. We'll get to that last. I don't know if have you made one yet anywhere else?
I have not made one anywhere, but I'm ready and willing.
Okay. The first one, this is kind of another corny question, but it is one that, here's what I wrote. If the Bengals win on Saturday, what do you expect? And I guess we've got into this, but the response from the fans in the city to be, is it going to be, I've already told myself, if they win on Saturday going forward, as long as there's no major injuries the next game, I will be so happy with this season. I just want to get that one win. Of course, you want them to win more, and it's going to hurt if they lose in the second round. But for me, the response is going to be, probably the best Bengals season of my lifetime.
Yes, I think that will be an accurate response, which, by the way, just as an aside really quick, Joe Mixon told us this week that he's going to have cigars ready again. Just like he did for the AFC North title when they beat the Chiefs. He had them ready. He bought them 2 weeks prior.
I'm buying cigars today.
Yeah.
So a cigar.
Yeah. So Joe Mixon said, I don't see it as a moment that's not big enough or whatever, it's not like you just hold the cigar for the AFC title or the Super Bowl. He said, no, he's like, this team hasn't won a playoff game. We know in how long, and it's meaningful. And so they want to celebrate that way. They're going to get after it, man. The team itself are going to celebrate that way. And so I think that's cool. I think it's deserved. I don't think it's, be a pro. It's not one of those things. It's, you should enjoy the moment. I think Bengals fans should have a cigar ready. Matt, you should have a cigar ready. This should be a moment that you remember, that you soak up, that you celebrate, that you embrace every part of it. And don't just say, we expected to win. We knew we were good enough. Whatever, screw the curse. No, I think you should absolutely embrace this like you're having your first child. That was too much. But you should.
I don't think hopefully my wife doesn't listen this deep. I mean, I don't know if my first child could bring me as much joy as a Bengals playoff win.
I was going to say, you got to light up a cigar in the hospital room when your first child is born. Hey, honey,
they allow that,
nice
right?
Job. Nice job. I'm going to light up a cigar here.
I did tell her earlier in the week, I was like, Saturday, like this might be the best day of my life. And she goes, we got married 4 months ago on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm like, I could control the marriage. This is out of my control.
Yeah, that is the correct response. I mean, it could be the best day of your life for a Bengals fan. And by the way, if they do win and the city celebrates like it should, and again, it should absolutely lose its mind over this. You have every right to. There is going to be talk of a Super Bowl run, even more so. Like this week, you're talking about the confidence.
Well, sure, you're 2 wins away at that point.
All that is going to be it. The roof is going to come off the city. The hype is going to be real. And at that point, you are really playing with house money, right? You are really playing with nothing to lose kind of mentality after this weekend, because, look, we may have been a year ahead of schedule, but all these things being considered, look where we are now. I mean, it's the Paul Rudd, hey, look at us.
Yeah.
GIF, so like it's going to be a cool moment. I think that Cincinnati could have one wild weekend if they get it done, and if they end up taking a knee somewhere around 7:30, 8 o'clock on Saturday night.
Can I, if they win, can I come live with you so I can enjoy the vibe? Can I have a Coca-Cola at the big game?
Hey man, whatever you got to have, Matt. Come on over.
Papa John's for dinner every night.
The cool thing is like, it's a Saturday game, right? So the way local news works, and I already told Joe this, I'm like, dude, if they win, we have 15-minute shows on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Fox 19. Now I'm like, dude, if they win Saturday, we've got all day Sunday to watch football games while we produce the winning Bengals show on Sunday night with all the reaction and all that fun. But like, most importantly, we get to watch football games. I think the Cowboys play.
Yeah. So the Sunday slate is Eagles, Bucks at 1, Cowboys, Niners at 4, and then the slaughter of the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night in Kansas City.
See, most importantly, don't tell anyone this on this podcast. Mute this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kind of a closet Cowboys fan. It's because I didn't have a true team that I adored growing up. I always wanted the Bengals and Browns to win, which sounds crazy. Growing up in Central Ohio, like I was just like, I want one of them to perform well.
You just wanted everyone to be happy.
Yeah, somehow, some way. But for some reason, and I can't completely explain why, because the team has changed and players have changed, I kind of like the Cowboys. And I'm really looking forward to that game between the Cowboys and Niners. That's going to be a fun game. So, yeah, it's the perfect scenario, man. Like Matt, come on down here, stay at my house, and then we'll enjoy Papa John's and Coca-Cola and watch the Cowboys and Niners.
I cannot wait. I'll be there Saturday, probably around 11 p.m. Smelling, reeking of cigar smoke as I sit at the Little Tykes table with your children. All right, last one, then I'll let you go. I kept you longer than I said I would. I apologize, and please forgive me. The final score on Saturday between the Las Vegas Raiders. By the way, I pointed this out earlier, kind of a cool nerd stat for me. The Bengals, this will be the third time they played the Raiders in the playoffs. The Raiders have called a different city home each time. So in 75, Oakland, in 91, Los Angeles, and now in 21, this is the 21 season, Las Vegas. Nerd stat, but I like nerd stats. Final score this Saturday. As you think about it, I'll say that I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than we anticipate. I've got the Bengals winning 20-10.
Okay. So that feels a little bit like a break the damish kind of game again.
Yes.
For the Bengals, where they're not throwing it all over the yard and they're trying to kind of just impose their will, as Joe Mixon said they want to do again. Okay. I will go.
And I think just to say, I think it's going to be similar to what we saw in Denver, a month ago, where is this defense as good as Denver's defense? No, but I loved, and I've said this before, I loved that on that 3-game winning streak that the Bengals had to end the season, they found a different way to win each time. And I think this is kind of the way to beat this Raiders team as well.
Yeah, so you threw out the stat earlier that Paul Danner Jr. put out there, which I thought was a cool one as well, about the 37 degrees or colder. Was it 16 points or less? Was that what you said?
17 or less.
17 or less, because I'm taking that into account as well. And I think that's a good stat, by the way.
I take no credit.
Yeah. And even though the Raiders have, been a quote unquote hot team, they haven't necessarily been all that impressive at times. It's amazing they scored as much as they did against the Chargers, who obviously are vulnerable and they do give up a lot of points. That being said, I'm going to call this a 24-13 Bengals win. And it is going to be, unfortunately, an uncomfortable game at times for them. It isn't going to be a game where they score as much as they can. But I do think it's going to be a somewhat comfortable fourth quarter for them. Whereas, they win 24-13. Maybe they are, maybe they're up something like 21-6 going to the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those kind of things where the Raiders do score a touchdown in the fourth, the Bengals get an extra field goal, whatever, So it's one of those things where they end up winning comfortably, but it's not like it's closer than it should be for a long part of the game. It might be something like 14-6 mid third quarter, and then the Bengals score, make it 21-6. So I think in the end, if my math is right, 24-13 is where I would land.
Okay, 24-13. It's kind of interesting you say this. I don't know if you realize this. When they went to the fourth quarter in Las Vegas earlier this year, the Bengals were only up 13-6, and of course, end up winning that game 32-13.
Yep.
So
Derek Carr has that turnover, and obviously, the Bengals kind of blew them out in the end. But yeah.
Cool. All right, man. I've kept you for way too long. I appreciate your time as always. Anything you want people to know? Tell me what you guys are working on this week, where they can find the great work that you and Joe Danneman do.
Well, if you turn on Fox 19 now at about any time, you will see Joe or myself on TV because it's nonstop and we never stop. I'm just kidding.
Is that your tagline? It's nonstop and we never stop. And then you two are in sunglasses and full tuxedos.
It's, the real tagline is Fox 19 now never stops.
Is that what it
TV.
is?
Yeah. And so Paul Danner Jr., whenever he sees us, he always says, "You guys never stop."
Oh,
because he knows. No, we'll be on. We do our big high school basketball show on Friday night, which will also be kind of a Bengals preview show because the Bengals play on Saturday. You can find us at 11:15 on Friday nights, as always. You can find us at 10:45 on Saturday nights and 11:15 on Sunday nights with the big Bengals show.
I'm never up this late.
Yeah. It's tough to stay up that late. I say yeah a lot. What am I, the kid from Sandlot? Anyways, yeah. Hey, yeah. Saturday, I would definitely tune in. I don't know how you're going to be celebrating if they win on Saturday, but our news is on at 10 o'clock Saturday after the game, which will only be a couple hours after the game ends. We will be live down at the stadium with post-game coverage, and there will be lots and lots and lots of it for that entire hour, just because of what that moment could possibly be like for the Bengals. So look for that one. But as always, if you would follow me on Twitter at Fox19 Jeremy or my coworker at Fox19 Joe, you'll pretty much be in the know about when we're on, when we have specials coming in the near week or weeks in this run.
Let's hope it's for the next month or so. We'll find out. Jeremy, I appreciate you joining me. I am Matt Edwards. It is In the Jungle. I will have another podcast out either on Saturday night or Sunday morning, either bawling my eyes out or just celebrating like a caveman who discovered fire. So, Jeremy, thanks for coming in, and we will see everyone later this weekend.
You've been listening to In the Jungle. It never stops.